BYU plays host to the Delaware Hens in their second home game of the season. They are coming off a massive win over Holy Cross, where they won by, I believe, over 40 points. It was nice to see them shake off any of their struggles, particularly on the offensive side that we witnessed in their first game against Villanova. They got to the rim at will in that game. They flexed their muscle. They went deep into the lineup. You got productions out of guys like Dom Diamande. Now you turn right around, you get another bye game ahead of this weekend's matchup against UConn. So kind of the final opportunity to tune up a little bit before another top five team comes to, or I guess they're traveling to play at UConn. I think they're playing that one in MSG if I'm not mistaken. But yes,
No,
Dion, what
it's in Boston.
is it? Oh, so is it in the TD Garden?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be like I mean, obviously like it's a Yukon home game, but anybody that knows like that's where Devon's is from too. So it's
Oh,
a
right.
weird
It's
like
a homecoming for AJ.
yeah, all like it's kind of cool. Like all like the five stars are kind of doing that now, where they force the team to play like a game where they're from. I
Yeah.
think I want to say it was Ace Bailey against Kennesaw State was at least the first time I recognized it, where
hmm
it's like, hey, you have to do a game in the non-con, like so my family can watch me play type of thing. So I think it's kind of cool that AJ did it, and he didn't just do it against like Boston University. He's like, yo, let's play UConn at TD.
Right, right. And I believe that's the one they call Stores North. Then
Yes.
and MSG is Store South. We got a lesson on that from the UConn fans. But yeah, of course, we will be previewing that one later in the week as well. However, we got one more game to break down ahead of that one. So Dion, after this performance against Holy Cross, where you saw BYU at least look a little bit more potent offensively, what are you looking out of this matchup?
I think BYU, I'm really, and I don't know that I'm going to see it against Delaware,
hmm
respectfully to Delaware. But I think with BYU, my main thing is just what's the roles of everybody
hmm
and how do we all like fit into it, I guess you could say. And like, who's the guy? Well, we know who the guy is, but like, does, um, does Rob Wright know who the guy is?
hmm
You know what I mean? We might know who it is, but does Rob Wright, does Richie? I believe Richie does. I think Richie just like likes to get his own bucket sometimes too. And can AJ play within that in his own right? Um, and I think it's a twofold thing. How do they fit in with AJ? How does AJ fit in with them? If you really look at it, I mean, it's kind of rich to say VJ Edgecombe's probably rookie of the year right now, and I want to say he's averaging like 30. I don't actually think it's 30, but I know it's over, I know it's a lot.
hmm
Rob Wright was kind of like the guy for Baylor though, even with a VJ Edgecombe who
Yeah.
went number three, I believe. And Richie was obviously the guy for BYU last year, and now they're playing supplementary roles. How do they fit into that? AJ's always going to be the guy, but I'm not sure. Mine is playing with Tyron on the Open Soldiers. I'm not sure AJ's himself has played with supplementary guys that are as talented as Richie and Rob are as well.
Right. Yeah. I think I would say at least watching that Holy Cross game, it seemed like they started to make some strides toward figuring out their roles and figuring out what the expectation from each guy is going to be. I love the way that they used Richie in that game. And granted, I think KY said this at the during the halftime interview that Holy Cross, their defense exists in a way that takes away threes. That was their MO going into that. And we saw it. Like BYU, they shot 82% from two. That's insane. I don't know if I've ever seen that in like, I mean, I'm sure I have, but off the top of my head, I can't remember the last time I saw a team shoot 80 plus percent from 2 point range on as many attempts as BYU had. They went 32 from 30 for 38 inside the arc. And it just seemed like it was a layup line. And anytime a Cougars player wanted to get to the rim, they just had to put their head down, take 2 steps, and they were there. Like they were just beating everybody off the bounce. But it was good to see Richie sort of bring some of that back to his game, even going back to the exhibitions and to the Villanova game where you saw him play more in the corner and less on ball. And I thought like it seemed like Kevin Young kept things pretty vanilla again. There wasn't a ton of like the bigs running the offense at the top of the key. It was really just a lot of ball screen actions. But even beyond that, they used AJ as a screener for Richie a lot, and that's something I would love to continue to see and kind of figure out the chemistry there. I think that's a way that you take your two. I would still say like those are your two most talented players.
AJ and Richie,
AJ and maybe not most, maybe your two best players. I think
your two
Richie
best
is.
players.
I
I
think
think
Rob.
Rob probably has more individual talent than Richie
Yeah,
does, or at least more
yeah.
natural talent.
Right. I'm with you on that. But I think it's a good way to involve your two best players in the action. That seems like it can get both of them more involved. And so that was a little redundant. It involves your best two players in the action with hopes of getting them both going, even though the two of them, I think both thrive with the ball in their hands. So yeah, that's something I'm continuing to look for. Like, does Richie Saunders build on this in terms of just, I would say like that was the most we saw him look comfortable just to the start of this season. I mean, you see against Villanova, he was 4 for 13 that night. Going back to the game against Carolina, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I want to say he was 4 for 13, 4 for 13 as well, like somewhere in that range where, yeah, there just was a level of comfort we haven't seen out of Saunders yet with this new look team up until that game against Holy Cross, where it was like, oh, this is the same kid that we saw torch the Big 12 last year.
Yeah, I definitely think that level of comfortability has a lot to do with them playing Holy Cross.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Holy Cross is awful.
with all due respect to Holy Cross, they're a lot worse than Villanova and North Carolina is. So I definitely think that helps. But I mean, you saw AJ, and this is where I'm not sure I'm going to get what I'm looking for in the Delaware game. AJ
Hmm.
took a back seat in this one because it was Holy Cross, and he's likely going to take a back seat against Delaware because it is Delaware. How do we like function with that? That is an NBA mindset. These are college players you're playing with, AJ. These are college players you're coaching, KY. Um, but that's an NBA mindset. That's Ant taking the Charlotte Hornets game off and saying, I got to be ready because we're playing against the Knicks tomorrow in MSG. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, these are the games where you want Rob Wright, you want Richie, you want Kennard, you want Keba Keita, you want a Xavier Stanton, like, or in a Boscovich, like, yo, go get yours.
Hmm.
I'm good. Like, no one's watching this game. It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
It
maybe
makes
you see AJ play more of a facilitator in this game. Like,
Yeah, it
get
makes
he'll
perfect sense.
yeah.
But are college kids going to be like IQ wise good enough to have their roles change game to game? Right?
Mhm.
Like again, like that isn't necessarily something that happens at the college level. That isn't something that it's definitely not something that happens at the high school level. You know what I mean? Like typically it's like, okay, Braden's our point guard. Braden's playing point even if they're playing Purdue Fort Wayne. You know what I mean? Caleb Wilson's the best player on the court, whether it's Kansas or it's Central North Carolina Greensboro Junior College. You know what I mean? Like we're not
Mhm.
deferring to Seth Trimble just, well, my bad. We're not deferring to Jonathan Powell just because like
We
we're
need to get
playing a
him
D2
going.
school. That
Mhm.
doesn't happen at the college level. So I'm very curious if we can do that. Can we have the ups and downs of shot selection?
Yeah, I think some of it'll be, what is KY's emphasis going into that one, where you could tell in the Holy Cross game, the game plan was we are going to live in the paint. We know what they're going to do to us defensively, and we are going to beat them off the bounce. Looking at Delaware, for instance, they've only played one D1 game, and then they lost to a D2 school, which alarm bells should be going off if you're a Delaware fan. Now you have to go to Provo when you just got packed up by some random D2. But against Bucknell, like in their first game of the season, also a loss. They got lit up from three. I think Bucknell shot 41% from beyond the arc. And the final margin of defeat for Delaware in that game, they only lost by 8. They were down 19 with under 5 minutes to go. So, oh, excuse me, 16. I exaggerated a little bit, but still, this Delaware team, they have some talent. Surprisingly, they have too much talent, I would say, to lose to a D2. They have a former high major point guard in Christian Bliss, who played 2 years at Virginia, redshirted there. And they also have Justin Fernandez, who played at both Providence and George Mason, but he has been out with an injury. He's yet to make his season debut. But they have familiar names if you've like followed college basketball recruiting. However, they don't have any size. They want to get up and down the court. They play pretty fast, but I wouldn't really say they have the horses to do that right now. And even just looking at how Bucknell lit them up from beyond the arc, if you're gonna say this might be a get right game for the BYU shooters. I mean, Rob Wright hasn't made a three on the season. AJ's just 1 for 3, only attempted three all year. And I think Richie, what is Richie at on the year? Give me 1 second. Richie's 3 for 8. Still, so decent percentage, lower volume. This could be a spot where the team collectively just lights it up from beyond the arc. And also, if Delaware wants to run with them, it's going to be a very long night for the Blue Hens.
Yeah, I think well, I think that might be a long night for anyone in the country. Maybe
It's fair.
Bama aside.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Um, like, yeah, I mean, I think the key to playing BYU is you slow them down and you make them choose. You make them play within their roles. You make them play their spots and like figure out what they're going to do in a half court sense. And listen, if they defer to AJ, getting to his left in the midi, he beats you with the first step because he's quicker, and then he elevates over you because he's like a foot taller than everybody else, jumps like 2 feet higher than everybody else. That, like, honestly, is one of the more unstoppable moves I think I've seen out of anybody, like in the world, by the way. But yeah, I mean, Delaware unfortunately like isn't gonna hang with BYU, but what does BYU show that they can carry over against UConn? Like
Yes.
that's the biggest focus, and I mean, I don't think they're gonna play the way they played against Holy Cross against UConn.
Right.
Saunders, Rob Wright, AJ all took 10 shots equally. That's never gonna maybe not never. That's not gonna happen against UConn.
Hmm.
Respectfully, like AJ's gonna go get his. What do
Hmm.
the other two do when AJ goes to get his?
Hmm.
That's my biggest focus. I think a lot of the focus after the first game, not a lot, but like some of the focus after the first game was on AJ in terms of like maybe he should have went to get his in certain spots. I think he should. He's the number one recruit in maybe the greatest freshman class ever through a week of college basketball. You know what I mean? So like
Through a week, give the caveat,
it's
but
only
yeah,
a
no,
week, but through a week, he's the number one recruit in the greatest freshman class ever. He
Mhm.
should go get his. Are they going to be okay with that? Are they going to be able to like fall in line a little bit?
Yeah, and even to that point, this is where it worked really well, the more egalitarian approach against Holy Cross. And I mean, maybe we do get that again just because it's an inferior opponent. And because like with these types of games, I do want to see what else you're going to get from the rest of the rotation. I think at this point, we've seen enough DeBonsa, whether it's been the exhibitions, whether it's in the real games, whether it's been his high school, his EYBL tape to know like this kid is a pro scorer. He's operated like a pro scorer for the past 3 years. He's looked
Right.
just like he's ready. He's ready for the moment. But I mean, you mentioned his name earlier. I want to see if like can Xavier Staten. I always Xavier Staten. BYU fans weigh in the comments. Xavier Staten, if he can give
I
you
know it's Xavion. I can
I
confirm
know it's
that.
Xavier. If my guy X, if Xavier can give you more than 12 minutes, he's a guy who I think at points this summer we were hearing buzz that there's a chance he could end up a first round draft pick. He played 1 minute against Villanova, 12 minutes against Holy Cross, has scored 0 points on the season, like still waiting for his first bucket. He gave you 2 blocks against Holy Cross, but this to me is a guy where, ahead of UConn, I'm just like the schedule gets tough after that. You play UConn and Boston, then you play Wisconsin, then you play Miami. You got 3 high majors in a row before you get Cal Baptist in early December, and then you go play Clemson. Like they play tough opponents. And I say what you will
Yeah.
about Clemson and Miami, but both those rosters are refurbished with good coaches who I think should at least put up a fight. They're not just going to roll over. So this is sort of your last chance until early December to see what do I have in my bench. And if Kevin Young wants to play 10, 11 guys like he did for most of last season, this is an important moment for that. And Staten is just the one I keep coming back to because of the offseason buzz and even because of the different dimension he offers to this team than Keita, because he has the size that Keita doesn't have, as in length wingspan. Keita obviously is a well-built dude, and he has the defensive prowess, at least theoretically, that Mihailo Boskovic lacks. Like this is a dude who should be an important part of the rotation going forward, and I want to see if he can stay on the floor. I want to see if Kadeem Boot can continue to improve and make good on some of the hype that we heard about him in the offseason. And I want to see if Kennard Davis, how does he fit in his ancillary role? Do you see him continue to take those corner threes and attack the closeouts like he did against Holy Cross? Do you see him look a little more comfortable or maybe even a little more athletic, a little more tenacious out there? So I think it's a good opportunity for them to sort of refine some things. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm still with you. It's going to come back to AJ, but these buy games still can give you a little insight into where the rest of the team is at.
Yeah. I think Staten's kind of like a weird piece. I think if he's really good, it elevates your team. If he's out the rotation, I don't think it lowers the floor.
That's
If
fair.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I think that's how like deep this team is because you have a Kata. I like Boscovich a lot.
I
I
like it.
know
He's been
I don't think
good.
he's hit a three yet, but I think he has a burner. Like I think he's one of the best shooters in the country. Never made a three, and I'm sitting here like, yo, he's one of the best shooters in the country. But I think you have so much talent that he's like that weird, but like his natural talent, natural athleticism, that's a ceiling raiser, right? Like
Mhm.
that takes you from like if someone thinks you're a top 5 or 10 team to like a top 3 team because you have a guy like Staten in it. But I also think like if he only plays 5 to 10 minutes, I think your floor is still Elite Eight, Final Four team.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Also, on the topic of Boscovich, let me lock in a prediction that Mihailo Boscovich hits his first three of the season against Delaware. And I'm going to say, I'll say he hits two threes en route to I'm going to say a 27-point victory, and that BYU, they eclipse the century mark in this one. And so I'll say they win 100 to 73.
100 to 73. I think it's worse than that. 105-58.
I mean, to be fair, Delaware just put up 62 points on Wilmington, the D2 school.
105-42.
We'll be back breaking it down. Make sure you stay tuned.